Okay, well, thank you everybody for tuning in yet again for another episode of the Gab Lab, a show that's designed to bring you financial information and intel that won't only blow your mind, but it's there to build your bottom line as well. I'm your show host, Tanya Woods Richardson, and today's guests, not one, but two financially fierce founders. We've got brothers in the lab today, Jason and Harley. Welcome to the Gab Lab.
Thanks for having us, Tony.
Yes, that's awesome. Thanks for a great introduction.
Oh, well, yeah. No, well, now we're going to get into it. I am so glad that you're here because we've shifted this series a little bit before, and we still do, but we were always talking to financial experts that were talking to founders about what we should be doing in our business when it comes to numbers and nailing those numbers. And now, over the course of the last several episodes, we've been talking with founders like you, founders that have had the courage to really talk about their business, some of the financial mishaps that have gone on, how they've addressed them, and how they've kind of risen to the occasion and succeeded despite them. So thanks for being in here. And again, thanks for having the courage to show up and tell us your story. So appreciated.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
So maybe let's start with telling the audience a little bit about you guys, your brothers, your founders in business, your partners in business. Maybe tell us a little bit about the business so everybody can kind of wrap their head around what it is that you've actually built.
So back in 2002, we started out just trucking, hotshot. Since then, we've added a pipe yard and then kind of morphed less into hotshot, more into just general oil field picker work, but trying to highlight the pipe yard and kind of working in tandem. So we're not just relying on just the trucking. The pipe yard helps us retain business because the pipe yard that we do have, we have tried out some other avenues along the way. Some of them have worked for a time being and then eventually fade off, or they didn't work, and so we've snipped the cord. But through the last now going on 11 years, the pipe yard and the trucking have remained, definitely through some turbulent times, but here we remain. So.
And we're so glad that you are still here. You have been through ups and downs, I think, like a lot of businesses, right? I have to say, though, one thing that has always impressed me about you guys is that through the downturns, you don't let the downturn get to you, but you consistently want to learn through it. And you push through it. So it's not just about let's get back up there. It's about how can we do this differently, right? Hence all these different ideas and the evolution of the business. So I just wanted to put that out there because that's huge. Not a lot of founders do that.
Yeah, I think one of the main things, especially in the last 5 years here, right, is especially for someone like Jason, right, is giving him the opportunity to not be in the business, but working on the business, right? So he's not, necessarily involved in the day-to-day stuff. It allows him time to focus big picture, see the clients, see what's going on within the business, and allowing him to address the pitfalls and downfalls that have kind of gone through the business, and allowing everybody to grow and nurture within the business, right? So that's one of the big things within the last 5 years. And the other thing is nailing the numbers, right? Crunching down and taking the smallest piece of your business and can we do this better? Is there, even if the price is the same, are we happy with the service that we're getting? Is there somebody else out there providing better service for the same price, right? And trying to analyze, and then at the end of the day, if you're happy with where you're at, then moving on to the next thing, right? That's great. We've addressed that one piece of the business. We think that is where it needs to be for now, right? Not just leaving that for the next 10 years, but somewhere down the road readdressing that, right? But constantly going through this, and so it's kind of a constant thing throughout the last 5-6 years here, right? Are we getting the best, internet provider? Are we getting the best gas mileage? Are we getting the best fuel price? Are we getting, tire wise, are we getting the best tires out there? Maybe not the best, but best for what we're needing. We had a conversation here within the last couple months talking to one of the towing guys in town, and he had mentioned specifically about this one brand of tires that for steer tires, and throughout this heat in the last summer, he's noticed that there's been semis that have gone off the road down into banging off bridges, down into a river. And what he noticed was that all of the steer tires were all of this one same brand. And so, he was just saying to us, right, I'm not sure who you're with, but this one brand seems to have problems in the heat just during the summer. He said, I've never noticed it before, right? So then it got him digging into it and found out, some other details regarding it. And so, it's allowed us to readdress with our guys, this is why we have this certain brand of tires on for our steers, right? And it just helps reaffirm what we're already doing, right? And so just, keeping your ears open and making sure that you're listening to the information that is out there, right?
Well, and I think that's one thing that you guys have both done very well is crunching the numbers and making sound decisions based on the information that's in front of you. And so it's not always just about what is most financially feasible, but I know your brand in particular with your company, T-Bar One, is very much about safety. And in the trucking industry, that's a huge deal, especially of late with the number of accidents we've been seeing on the road. So I just wanted to make that correlation between financials and profit, and obviously making decisions that are in the best interest of your team and the people on the road, that they can coincide. Because a lot of people think that when we talk about profitability, it's like the be all and end all of our decisions. So I love that you've brought that up, Harley. Maybe just to clarify for everybody, what are your roles in the business? Harley, what do you take care of? And Jason, what do you take care of? And how do they dovetail into numbers?
What do you take care of?
So right now I'm the operations manager. I look after the pipe yard that we currently have, look after a lot of the day-to-day stuff, any of the incoming calls, the random stuff going on in the office, just making sure everybody, all the employees that are coming and going, everybody's happy. And then, yeah, that's mostly the gist of it.
Awesome. Okay. So operations, and Jason?
I'd be the president, and I'm the visionary, I'm the executioner, and I'm the culture builder.
Culture builder. I love it. Do we dare? I guess that's another podcast, is getting into what culture.
Well, it's interesting when I look back on it, and the little things matter. Everything matters, and you gotta, you think about, for example, we were 7 days from losing the company in 2016 with the oil crash, and that's when we met Tanya, and then did her, I remember being, when we first started, that you knew so much and you're going to do so much. And then as time is going on, I realize how little I know. And as time goes on, how I realize even less. And then it turns into where, as you learn and you learn about the budgets and the numbers and how to forecast. And, I really live by where there's no vision, the people perish. And we've seen it firsthand with us, whether you're going through something like a fire or whether you have an opportunity like abandonments. We were ahead of the curve on the abandonments here at the start of this year, because you could just see where this was leading. And we were 6 months into it, and we had competitors that still hadn't filled out their paperwork.
Can I just ask, Jason, sorry, I just want to ask there, because I think you might have listeners that are like, what's an abandonment? Maybe can you just clarify what that is? So the government came out with COVID, the government came out with an abandonment program to get rid of old wells. Okay.
Right? And that would help the industry, where not only was it helping the environmental side by getting rid of these old wells, but it was also helping the industry because it would provide jobs.
Okay.
Work. And so we just really tried to get ahead of the curve. We seen where it was going with the Aboriginal side of things too. So we found a partner there, and that has kept, people ask us how we've been, and we've been pretty much flat out busy since mid-February. We've been our best breakup ever, which is the April-May season. And we really don't have any new drills around Lloyd. And so it's just leading where, and going to the culture thing. I didn't used to do it. I used to hire guys, somebody knows somebody, or here's a buddy, or, this guy's got 20 years of experience. And I've really been able to, crunch it down to where I want to hire good people. And so I don't look at, and you look for little things. So if their resume comes in, they've had 8 jobs in the last 2 years, that tells me something's wrong already. So I don't look at it. But if somebody looks like they've had jobs, have a reference. They'll tell you right away. The reference is good. Then they come in, and we set up a culture here where people who want to be at home at night with their family, they want to have some weekends off. And so I've had where I've interviewed people and they want to just make tons of money. And I say, we're probably not the right fit. And it's okay, because there's other people. It's okay for them. But by doing that over time, we've built this culture of guys that have the same interests as us and push the same way and enjoy the work they're doing. And so it gives a better feel out there for the clients. And, and then all the other things that go with business, running a budget, diversifying, finding different diversifications, even within the industry, all that great stuff. But I just look back and I go, when we started with Tanya, we didn't know our numbers. We didn't do the budgets, and you have to do that. And you have to build your culture. And your culture can be different than ours, but you have to build that culture, or you'll continually run into where you're friction with your employees and with your clients.
So Jason, let's go back to that 2016. You had talked about the catalyst to that being that, you had mentioned that you were close to kind of the end of the rope. And then just now you mentioned the importance of doing budget. So I know that, can we just talk a little bit about that? Because I know most founders, they would prefer to go to the dentist and get their teeth pulled than sit down and do a budget. Why is that so important, and what difference has that made to you in the business?
Well, I agree with you. At the very start, it is like going to the dentist. But over a couple of years, you fine tune it. And I started off doing a budget for a year and trying to be too precise. And then as time went along, I started to, now I run a budget not only for the trucking company, but the farm we have. And it's got 4 years, right? So I run 4 years, and it's constantly moving, and it just allows you, it just takes the stress off, because you can see where you're going. We know where we're going with the truck company. We know that in a year we are losing half of our payments. It really gives you the ability to see the outlook. But I'll give you a different reason too. It gave us the ability to see, as we're going, the numbers, like this is going to be probably our best year in the last 6. And now we were able to make a decision in the middle of summer to go, you know what, we're going to increase our sales a little bit. We're going to go out there and be ahead again of our competitors and send out some swag to the consultants and to our clients. And it just gives you that visit. It takes the stress off you, because when you're running blind, then you have a great month and you're up here, and then you have a terrible month and you're down here, and you're just in such a yo-yo. Whereas, I knew that August was going to be a tough month for us because we had 3 payrolls coming out, because we do every second week. So I just knew it, right? I can see it. And so then when it happens, and actually our month is probably going to be better than I thought it was. It still wasn't a great month, but I'm prepared for it. And I can still see by the year-end numbers where we're at. And I can still see that we're out of our bad lease. And I can still see that we're going to be where we're dropping all these payments by August of next year. It gives me the idea that, hey, we're going to really, every time I stand up and say, hey guys, let's go buy one more truck, that everybody can tell me, Jay, sit down. Right. And it just, because you have that vision, and by having that vision, it leads you where you are. You can see, even, you can see if you're tailing off on a certain product or a certain trucking unit, like if our 1-tons are doing less than they used to, maybe that's where I focus my sales, right? And always remembering that you always want to focus 80% of your sales on your existing customers.
There was a few things to kind of go on what Jay's talking about there, where by us, him doing the budget and then us sitting down as a team and looking at the numbers, it all of a sudden got to the point where we're going, our repairs on this one unit are costing us more than a brand new unit would be to just go lease. Let's get this one to auction or sell it privately, whatever you need to do. And let's just go get a new one, because at the end of the day, now we've got a brand new unit and we're actually saving ourselves money, even though, the repair, you're not seeing all those repairs, right? And so, but then it takes the stress away, because now you've got a brand new unit again, which is less stressful than something that, and it helps with the culture again, because now guys are proud of the unit that they're driving, right? And so it's all this one big huge cycle here, right?
Oh, I love it. It sounds like, I know this is my experience, and it sounds like it's your experience too, that it's empowering, that it doesn't put you in this situation of constantly reacting to things, that you're a little bit more proactive, but you also know that if something does come up, it's just a matter of going back to the numbers and then working it through, right? Like I always find financials are like a business plan in numbers, right? And then you translate it onto paper, but it tends to make sense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say regarding any of it, right? The biggest hurdle that we have had when I first started, which is 11 years ago now, compared to now, is our stress level is completely different, even than 5 years ago, right? I mean, we went through COVID and we weren't even as stressed as we were coming off of, one of the best years to, a down year, right? When the oil patch starts to crash, right? Last year should have been the most stressful year of our entire life, right? And we're not even, it's taken away a lot of that stress from the business and the operations and the day-to-day operations, all because, he's not working in the business, he's working on the business. It allows you the vision, it allows you to see what's coming up, what's going on, what's forecasted, right? Allows you to be looking at the markets. So you kind of, it's a bigger thing that all of a sudden now we're starting to look at the different markets and stuff like that to understand the trends that are going on. But all of this is started because 5 years ago, right? And you're trying to get out of this stress bubble, right? And I think this is I think that for any business owner, the amount of stress that you carry, however you can deleverage that, right, I think is crucial. And I think out of any businessman, the stress is the number one killer, I would say, because there's so much to go on, right? And fortunate for us, it's not just the two of us. Our dad is here as well, and so we've kind of got that group, and now an advisory board as well, which it just gives you that sounding board where you can kind of what do you think about this? How would you do that? Somebody else that you can share what's going on in your business, and not necessarily have to worry about them going to a competitor or anything like that, right? It's just a little bit of somebody to talk to, right?
I love that. So I want to touch on advisory boards. I want to touch on, Jason, something that you brought up that I see in a lot of male dominated businesses. I'm trying to be gender correct here, but typically construction, excavation, trucking. It's the topic of equipment and going to buy new equipment, because that seems to, women love to buy shoes, men love to buy equipment. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I also want to talk about property. And you had mentioned a fire, and I want to chat a little bit about that with our time that we have left. I just want to go back though, and I want to acknowledge and celebrate the work that you guys have done, because when we go back to those original days of just even understanding our numbers, right? I think you, like many other founders, just pull up the accounting, the notice to readers to go, here, here's the numbers, here's what we've been submitting for tax reasons. And then we kind of went through them, right, and made sense of them for you to understand that. And what has been so amazing to watch over the years is, you're right, in that first couple of months, it was a little uncomfortable, right? Of like, what is this? What is this process, right? What are we doing? You're supposed to help us build our business, not, get into the numbers. But you did it. And then there has been just this growth and progression with the numbers just becoming intuitive to you. You actually being able to see through them and read through them and understand how they're all going to add up by the end of the year, like as you're starting off your year. So that has just been such a gift for someone who loves numbers and is trying to encourage other people to love numbers, to get you guys to a place where you are actually loving your numbers. You're loving what they tell you, and as a tool to just, you know, shift and shape and move you where you need to go so you can get rid of the stress, because the stress is usually financial stress is number one, right, for a lot of founders. So I just
I think a lot of time what guys are doing and what we used to do, it's kind of like the numbers went to the accountant at the end of the year, and then you opened up to see if you made money or not, right? And you think you're running all year. Woo, we made money this year, you know. And it's such a tough way to run because you get so emotional at times. So, you know, you'll be halfway through the year and some guy comes in and says, hey, we're going to have all this work over here, and you run out and you buy 3 trucks. And then at the end, you realize, you know, once the accountant lets you peek into the numbers, you go, well, maybe we didn't make as much from that contract, or maybe we didn't actually need that much, or could we have done something different? And I just find running the other way where we're looking ahead rather than behind, it just really changes your viewpoints, and it allows you to be a better leader. So as you're talking to your people, you have a better vision. And you know, it really came home with the fire. You don't realize how many of your employees, they have families, they have their issues at home, how much they rely upon their job and the leader there to steer them in the right direction. And if you're in there day to day, you see the emotion. Sometimes you can get caught up in the emotion. This guy's mad because he had to leave this morning, or this guy's mad because he only got 39 hours last week. But what you don't realize until you pull yourself above that is how much they rely on you. And when we had the fire, I tell people that the day after the fire, I couldn't believe how many people were so scared.
Can we just explain? Sorry, Jason, sorry, you were in the middle of a heart. For listeners, what was the fire? Because I know what the fire is.
We had a fire on a Sunday night in November that caught from one of our winch tractors. It was just some wires malfunctioned, and after the guy had washed the truck, and it was Sunday night, everybody had left, and the whole shop went up. It actually starved itself of oxygen, so it didn't burn everything, but it was smoke and heat and soot damage throughout the entire shop. We lost 10 units out of what you would say is probably 15.
Wow.
And so when people came the next morning, Monday morning, all they see is this entire company gone. And all everybody sees is their mortgages and their car payments and their son's hockey team and their daughter's dance recital. And how am I going to pay for this? How do I go home to my wife? Where do I go? And so I found the very first day, I wasn't dealing with insurance companies, or, you know, Harley was, right? Harley was our operation guy. He's dealing with the insurance company. I was dealing with people's emotions and fears, going, we're going to be okay, guys. Right? We got these 5 trucks here, explaining to them how it's going to work. We're going to do this. We're going to talk to CNRL. We're going to fire up the old couple of units. We're going to get you going. We're going to get you going. We're going to a sale Thursday. And as the guys, the next day, seeing guys out working and things progressing. But that first day, if there was no leadership there, if there was nobody for them to talk to, the whole thing could have just cratered on its own. So I just find it interesting as you start to pull yourself out of the muck, and you start to just lead by knowing where your company is, what contracts you need, what you need for equipment, what the guys need, where your pricing needs to be at. You provide that leadership and stability for all your employees.
Oh, that's so important.
The vision helps throughout something like that, especially, right? Because it'd be so easy to just throw in the towel. Oh, well, that's it, right? But we already know where we're going. We already know what we've got coming up. We know how we're going to get there. This is just a speed bump, right? It's all right, guys. This is what's coming up. We already know what's going on. It allows us to just, okay, bing, boom, you know, carry on with life, right? And was it stressful? Absolutely. Was there long days? Absolutely. But it made it easier knowing where you're going to, because of the vision that, you know, we've put in place, right?
And am I correct in like the financials helped with that as well? Because that was kind
100%.
of a line to guide you through, to guide you out. Okay.
Yeah, we had to redo the finances, right? So you've got a budget set out, and also November you have a fire. So revamp it, but now you're working with, okay, so if we're able to do this and hit these numbers and these targets, then we're going to be able to survive through this.
Yeah.
And then we did survive through it, and everything's going along great, and then COVID hit, right? So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. But, I guess the one thing I noticed with COVID too is COVID just exposed where people were at financially. So those who were financially vulnerable going into COVID, COVID exposed that. Those that were financially fierce, or I don't even want to say, like the riches were coming, but they were solid, right? You understood what was going on. You take that practice and you continue to apply it to any challenge that comes up. It kind of brings me back to that moment where you were talking, Jason, about the longer you're in business, the more you realize you don't know. However, I also find you grab tools that give you this sense of empowerment, because you know that you'll always be able to get through anything.
Yeah.
So more stuff's going to
I agree. I think it's really important. If I ever had to start another business, there's you got to carry your 4 or 5 things around in your back pocket, in the back of your mind all the time, because it helps you get through them things. And so for me, it is vision, it's execute, it's culture, right? And it's knowing your numbers. So if you have them four things for me, then if I hit a crisis, I automatically revert back to that. So we had the fire, I revert back. Okay, I need the culture. I got to talk to the guys because I can't lose them. Right? I need the vision. What do I got to do? So automatically you go into that mode. And then the third thing is I got to execute. And they talk about the people that struggle as entrepreneurs and business people are the people that don't execute. You can't muddle around for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to see what happens. You gotta, and so by me just knowing that in my mind all the time, vision, execute, culture, numbers. That's my 4 things. And I hit a crisis, I hit anything, and I revert back to that because, okay, what do I got to do here? Which ones do I got to take? And then allows me, and then the final one's always execute. So then you're out moving.
I love it.
Whether it's I got to go get sales, I lost a contract, I got to go find another one. I lost 2 drivers, I got to go get some people, right? I got to talk to these guys, right? And so, you think COVID was tough. We hit March, me and Harley made a tough decision. At that point, we had 25 employees, and within a week, we had laid all but 4 off. Wow. And that's tough because we went through it in 2015, and one of the reasons we just about lost the company is because everybody wants to be a positive person, which is great to be positive. But we waited 4 months to lay people off because, well, maybe what happens if it gets better, right? But all that cost we ate. And there was no coming back from that. And by doing this, we had, so our biggest contract we probably do 5 to 7 jobs a day for them. We did 3 jobs the entire month of April for them. If we hadn't done all them layoffs, we were done. Yeah. But by doing that, we were able to adjust. And of course, that wasn't the only thing we done. We clamped down on like 0 sales, just shut her down. And then as it started to pick up, our contracts were still there. We were able to still work for the people, started hiring guys back. And as it went along, we came up through it, right? But it's just willing to make hard decisions, execute with what somebody else might have different, what's their strengths or what they think's important, but you got to know what's important to you and then be able to execute on it.
I think that's a really important point, and I'm so grateful that you shared it, because I think that, again, I'm going to stereotype here, but I do see a lot of women in business specifically that tend to martyr up, right? It's always all self-sacrifice, and I'll sacrifice the business for the sake of keeping people and not offending or not hurting people's feelings or making sure that, Jane can go home and support her family. But it's like that oxygen mask. If you can't put it on the business first and make sure the business survives, then everything else, like it's a ripple effect, right? So,
it was a hard lesson to learn. It was a hard lesson to learn back in 15, 16 there. And then, going through it, as Jay's talking about, and you're getting so close to losing the company. Well, now looking back on it, and this was part of the reason why we were able to, like, when Jay talks about we shut it down, like the week before, everybody still was getting like 40 hours and everybody's going like, what do you mean we're shutting it down? Right? Like everybody, what do you mean everybody's laid off? No, like this is like everybody's on EI and until we figure this side out, right?
Right.
But the 2015-16 in there, right? It was just a hard lesson to learn. And at the end of the day, if our company fails, it doesn't matter about these employees anymore, because now it doesn't matter. Like, we've lost our business, they've lost their income altogether. They've lost their job. They got to go find somewhere else anyways. So you're better off to just make the hard cut right off the start and, rip the Band-Aid off, right? Because at the end of the day, you can always hire those people back, right? And if it's not as bad as what you think it is, so be it, right? But you're there. If your business fails, it doesn't matter about all your employees because they're gone anyways.
And don't get us wrong, we make mistakes to this day. And I'll give you an example here where we had one employee. He'd had a couple of accidents, and we probably should have let him go to protect the rest of the people and the business. But he was a local guy, and he's a good guy. And so you go, well, we'll continue to work with him. And then he had another one, and we lost a contract over it. And then you got to look everybody in the eye about why you couldn't make that tough choice to protect the group, to protect everybody. And so I tell you, it starts right from hiring. No question should be left unturned. And there's been times, I'll give you another little story. I had a young guy come in. He was 18 years old, great big guy, and just jolly, right? Just happy. And he comes in and
like you, Jay, like you.
Job and and he's interviewing for a Swampert job. And so I one of the things I ask young guys, well, where do you hope to be in 5 years? And most young guys go, I don't know, make some money, maybe get my picker ticket because we have picker trucks or something. He goes, oh, I'd love to be a partsman, right? That was just kind of shocking because we have no parts, right? And so I took this in and I said to him, I said, and then I thought there's no sense just rating down on him. So I said, you were one of the final 5 guys. I thought so highly of you. And it just raised his confidence and his spirit so much. And then I said, if I was you, I would apply at the John Deeres and the Stuart Wrights and the Fort Garrys and the places that have parts, because that's what he wants to do, right? But in the end, I could have hired him, right? I could have just went, oh, he's a great guy, I'm going to hire him. But it wasn't the right fit because I know down the road that's not what he wants to do.
Right.
And so I find now I'm asking people, what do you want to do? If they come to me and say, well, I want to haul oil, we don't haul oil. Don't get so desperate for people. You're just hiring anybody that'll come in the door. Try and find that fit that, we're looking for guys that want to be home with their family. We're looking for guys that value weekends off. We're also looking for guys that when time to go, they work hard. They'll get up at 4 a.m. and go hard. They'll put in their 40, 50, 60-hour weeks, but they have a balance. And not everybody comes through the doors like that. We get young guys. I want to make $200,000 this year. I want to make $60 an hour. And I say that is possible, but you got to go up north to do that. And just don't get so desperate for people that you'll hire anybody that walks in the door. And I just find over time it takes away from the stress on the people side.
I love it. Well, that goes back to your point about building culture, right? Making sure everybody's a fit in that culture. And I think the other big takeaway from that message, at least from what I heard, is that sometimes it goes beyond just the skills of what you're looking for, right? To your point, like you want to be home with family, you value that. It's about the values that these people have and that they bring to the job and to the business. And I appreciate you bringing that up because I know a lot of people right now, a lot of businesses, staff, big issue, right? So again, that whole desperation thing.
And the other kind of tidbit with that one, right, is for all what Jay's talking about in the hiring, we still have hired wrong people, right? There's still people that we think this is going to be a good fit, and recognizing that it's not the right fit, and trying to do it as early as possible, right? Listening to the guys that we have already employed, and this is part of your own culture again. It's feeding on itself, right? So your guys are coming and talking to you going, I don't like this guy, right? And I don't know why I don't like this guy, but there's something that just I don't know why, but you've got to listen, right? You've got to be able to, and if it's not going to work, then that's okay. Cut cords and start going back through the process again, right? Not everybody is going to be a home run hitter, right? So you've got to just recognize it for what it is and move on, right?
And all this comes from I have made every mistake we have talked about. Everyone.
That's where we learn.
But I want people to understand it. This is not where I'm coming from, where I think I know it all. Yes. I have made all these mistakes that we're talking about. So the ones I'm not talking about is because I haven't made that mistake yet, and that's coming up in my future.
Okay, talking about mistakes, and I don't want to throw you under the truck on this one, but what is your process now when it comes to buying equipment? So you see a beautiful new truck and you're like, oh, wouldn't that be great for the shop? Do you have a process that you guys agree to before you decide to purchase and impact your balance sheet any new equipment? for
Yes, we
all
do.
those people out there that run the
We do. I'm going to say this though, to just be upfront, because we went through the fire, we had to go buy a whole bunch of equipment. And so we haven't had as much buying lately, but I will use the point that Harley had made. We had 2 1-tons. And so sometimes we can get in the mode where we're going to run them into the ground because they're making money and they're paid for, right? And so we do check up on our equipment once a year to check where our costs are. We do a project on each individual unit so we can track revenue versus costs. And so last year when I did it, I went, we're spending $3,700 a month just on repairs alone. And to buy 2 new trucks, the payments are $2,200 a month. Okay. And so you start doing the math on that and you're going, what are we doing? Right? And so we do have that process in place. We're also looking at utilization. So if we already have 3 45 tons and you look at the numbers and the third 45 ton hasn't moved a wheel in 3 months, I don't know if I should go get a 4th one. Right? We're trying to find that utilization, and that goes back to my sales even. If all my 45 tons are flat out, I'm not focusing on new sales on 45 tons. But if my 1 tons are hardly moving, then I'm looking at who can I go talk to try and pick up more work with them. And then within that, is there more diversification I can make, whether it's within the same industry on different clients or whether it's a different industry. And so you're doing that, you're breaking down your different models of what you're, depending on what your business is, and then looking at where your utilization is, and then how you can diversify within that so that you can withstand longer trying times longer, right?
Part of this all too, right, is having that group surrounding you, right? And so, I know there's been at times, right, whether it's myself or Jason or our dad, right? Well, I think we need to go get this. We've had all these trucks out all this week, right? And then the other person will go, well, can we survive for another couple weeks, right? Let's kick the can down the road another few weeks and see if we're still that busy. And then you get a couple weeks further down. Okay, is this going to last for another few weeks, or is the contract, was this only a short little blurb, right? Okay, well, maybe let's kick it another couple. Okay, no, it's getting to that point here now where we've gone through 6, 8 weeks, whatever, and it looks like it's going to continue, right? And so, okay, well, all right, well, now we need to go possibly look at finding a unit, and now it's okay, well, are we buying new? Are we buying used? What's out there? We're not just
crunch the numbers.
Hey, we're running down to the dealership as quick as we can, and we're going to take that one, and we're trying to overturn rocks different ways, trying to find out the values of stuff, right? Whether it is 5 years old and it's the price is cut in half, or it's 5 years old and for that price we might as well just go buy brand new, right? And there's decisions within the decisions kind of thing, right? And so it's a process, right, of making sure that if we do get to that point where we think we even need one, right, then there's certain steps that we're check and balancing all the time. Okay, do we actually need one, or we're just going through a little blurb here?
Right. It reminds me of a couple of mistakes we made when we first started. We try to be a lot more exhaustive now, whether it's hiring employees, buying equipment, buying the shop and land here. When we first started, a salesman would come and say, hey, I got this 25-ton picker, I'll build you. It's top of the line, it's everything, and we just sign it and he'd build it. And we wouldn't go to a second. We wouldn't look at, maybe we could buy one that's only a year old, and we could say, and maybe we can get that for half the price. And we just didn't know our numbers, to give Tanya a little blurb there. And it really cost us at the start. It cost us a lot of money, right? And we could have been doing the same work for the same rates for half the cost. And so, for example, with the shop we just bought, we finally got out of a lease that, again, another mistake we made, right? And
it's a whole other podcast, that one. Yeah.
Crushing, right? That lease was crushing.
Yeah.
And and I started last July looking at properties. And I think in the end, I went through 2 different real estate agents, 3 different builders, a couple private landowners. I looked at probably 15 different properties, and remembering that, where we're from here, we're looking for at least a 10,000 square foot shop with 10 acres. They just don't come around the corner all the time. And I still looked at probably 15 different properties and looked at different things. And honestly was not happy until I found the one we're in was the very last one. And it was a friend of mine. I said, hey, I think I know a guy who's privately selling a place. And because of the experience of everything we went through and all looking at all these places, when I seen it and what he was asking for, I just knew. You just knew. And because of that, we probably saved ourselves at least $1 million right off the top. So how much is that in payments? It's in a better location than some of the other places. It's going to be better resale for us 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, or easier to rent out. There was just so many positives. But if we would have just went and bought the first place that comes along, our business suffers for the next 25 years because of that one decision.
So it sounds like it's always tying into numbers, right?
Which then in turn creates stress, right? Or
Yes.
lack thereof, right?
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
by knowing our numbers, right, and knowing the different properties out there, it was allowing us to go out, know the deal that's there, and not have the stress, right? Stress, number one killer.
Yeah, no, for sure. So in wrapping this up, I'm curious if you guys could say a few words. We haven't talked about this before on any of our episodes, but talk to us a little bit about advisory boards and what does yours look like, and what impact has a board had on you, your business, your numbers going forward? Just a few words on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Just to clarify, not one person on our advisory board has anything to do in our industry. They don't know, per se, right? They know we've got trucks, they know kind of what we do, but there is no experience on our advisory board in our industry. These are all support people that specialize in certain fields, right? That when we need somebody that is, needing to go buy us equipment, right? We talk to him and he can help us out in that area, right? And so it's just adding the people that can support you in your business in a certain field and that can help you, right?
I think adding to that, I mean, our advisory board, like Harley says, so we have someone who's got a great background in helping other businesses and nailing the numbers. But the second guy, he's business background, really heavily on business development and sales. So it's just a different person than the first one. And then our third one is more on the banking sector side of things. And so it just brings different expertises to the table. And so then when we meet 4 times a year, you're bringing in 3 people who they don't care about, there's no emotion for them, right? And so they're just looking at the numbers and they're asking tough questions without even knowing it because they're not in their day-to-day. Plus, they each have their own area of expertise. So we've had meetings where we bring them all in and we go through the numbers. But on top of it, they're able to, we can specify into a certain area, right? So with the budgets, we have a person that can help us with the budgets and what we're looking at there, maybe how we could fine tune it or what we're missing. And with the sales things, we've talked about in the past, how can we build more clientele? How can we diversify? And you're just bringing in expertise from different industries that they just bring in so many different ideas that you just don't know of. And it just adds to your experience and still helps solidify your bottom line because they're asking you sometimes the tough questions, which gets rid of the elephant in the room and helps you make a hard choice.
Helps keep you honest. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, not that there's any dishonesty with you guys. You guys are always above board, but it's true. I think it helps to look at things objectively versus subjectively, right? Sometimes in your business, you're in the forest, so it's hard to see the trees, and it kind of forces you to get out of it and to see it differently from different perspectives.
Can I add one more thing on that, Tony? We have an advisory board, but I have heard of with different people, different things. Like I know there was one group. It was a business owner from each different industry. So it wasn't all oil field. It'd be maybe one guy was in a trucking and one guy was in maybe owned a furniture store and they would meet once a month for breakfast. And then one of the people would talk about how their business was doing. And so I've heard of different type of support groups to it. Everybody, it doesn't have to be an advisory board, but it is, you're so scared. You think everybody else are just millionaires running around, going to Hawaii, and they have no problems, right? And it's actually really, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, when you actually realize everybody else is going through similar things that you're going through, whether it's employees or loans or debts or high times, or you're going through a low time or COVID. Like, we all are going through this, and nobody, everybody has their strengths, but it's not like there's one guy that's just doing so awesome and some guy just sucks, right? Like, we're all going through these struggles together in a different way.
Well, I so appreciate that. And it's a great place to end this episode, because this is the reason why we do the show, is to let people know that they're not alone in their financial challenges. It's what kills 82% of businesses is financial mismanagement. And everybody thinks that they're all on their own, making these mistakes all on their own. Especially as business people, there's this perception that we're supposed to have our numbers together. We're supposed to know better, but we're not taught this stuff. Very few of us are taught at home. Very few of us were taught in school, right? Taught by parents. So I want to thank both of you really for coming on here. It takes a lot of courage to come to a podcast, first of all. And then secondly, to talk about,
especially when you look like me.
Guys are beyond handsome. Talking about numbers and money. And so I so appreciate you just getting real about the topic. And I know that there's going to be so many people listening in on this that are like, bam, 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 right? And so many great suggestions there. I'm going to have show notes so they will kind of articulate some of these key points. I just say one thing that I've really taken away from this is your four tool toolkit. I don't know what you want to call it there, but the vision, the culture, the execution, the action plan, and then the numbers it's kind of like that's your lifeline out of any sort of stressor that, you just always keep coming back to that as a company. Harley, you're doing it, Jason, you're doing it, and you're all following that rope through the proverbial fire, but in your case, it was literal as well. So thank you guys for doing this. I so appreciate it. I'm going to leave it there. Again, so appreciate you being on the call today and in the lab, and for everyone that's listening, so appreciating you, all of you, taking the time to listen to this story. As always, feel free to reach out, post your comments down below, and we will see you again in the Gab Lab for our next episode. Bye for now, everyone.
I got one last comment.
Oh, go for it. Go.
When Ted Rogers was 88 years old, right? The owner, the head guy for all the Rogers, he was asked what his greatest accomplishment in business was at 88 years old. And his answer was, I survived. Thanks for having us on, Tanya.
Thanks, Tanya.
Bye, guys. Lots of love.